Let's keep reading Dr. Critchlore's School for Minions. We are up to chapter 10. An overlord without a minion is like a toothless shark. Dr. Critchlore in an advertisement. I raced back to the memorial courtyard, hoping to catch Professor Zaida before class ended. As I passed the organic vegetable garden, a healthy minion lasts longer in battle, I heard a yelp. I looked over at the strawberry patch and heard it again. Someone had gotten trapped in the strawberry snare, one of the most successful plant traps in the school. "Hello," I called. "Help! Where are you? Did the strawberry snare catch you?" "Yes, I just wanted a few strawberries. Help me." I looked down the path to the memorial courtyard. I didn't have much time before third period was over. "Please hurry," the voice said. "It's getting tighter." "I'm coming." The plant only awakened when someone touched a berry, so I carefully sidestepped my way toward the voice. If I hurried, I could free whoever was caught and still catch Professor Zaida. "Raise a hand or something," I said. "I can't see you." The plants grew atop tall mounds, set off in rows, their vines dripping down the sides. I saw a little hand pop up just a few metres ahead. An imp, probably. We had a lot of them in the year below mine. The textbooks said they were energetic, resourceful, and imaginative. In reality, they liked to steal things and play pranks on everyone. "I think I can pull you out," I said, reaching for him. Most imps don't grow taller than 2.5 feet, but they have long, very strong fingers. They are greenish in colour with pointy ears that stick up or out depending on the imp. Our hands clasped and his head popped up, a wicked grin on his face, the tips of his fangs peeking out over his lower lip. "Gotcha," he said. 4 more imps rose from behind the mound, wearing the light green jacket that all second-year students wear. Before I knew it, I'd been wrapped tightly in vines. I struggled, but it was no use. They had me good. The imps jumped up and scampered off, laughing. "We trapped a third year. Bonus points for us." Great. Just great. I'd fallen for the oldest trick in the book, the I'm trapped trap. I gnawed at the vines, but they were tough and rubbery. I heard the bell sound for the end of third period, and I felt like crying. Not only was I not getting out of detention, I was going to be tardy for my next class. Or worse, if I didn't get free, I'd get an unexcused absence mark, and that meant another detention. I didn't know what to do, so I sat back and howled. I howled at the sky, at the stupid imps, at the strawberry snare. I put all my frustration into that howl. When I paused to take in another breath, I heard a voice say, "Lighten up, will you? Some of them are still sleeping." I looked over and saw Psyche, pronounced Psyche, and smiled with relief. I was saved. Strands of the strawberry snare circled her legs in a gentle embrace. Psyche had a way with plants, and it was her nature. Her mother was a hamadryad, a tree nymph. Psyche's skin was the colour of mahogany wood, and in the right light, her black hair turned an iridescent green, like a hummingbird's feathers. We had grown up at the school together. She was like a sister to me. "Higgins, you idiot, what are you doing?" she asked. When I said she was like a sister to me, I meant the kind that calls you a moron and steals your clothes. She was wearing my nicely worn-in combat boots. "Psyche," I said, "thank goodness it's you. I was trapped by imps." "The I'm trap." I nodded. She rolled her eyes. "You are so lame." She knelt down and stroked the vines. They practically purred as they released me and stretched towards her touch. "There now, my darlings," she said. "Let Higgins go." I stood up. "Thanks," I said. "But aren't you supposed to be in class?" Psyche wasn't a minion. She was Dr. Critchlore's ward. Her parents had been killed in a fire when she was a baby. What was now our Boulder Ball field used to be a lush, dense forest. Dr. Critchlore had saved Psyche, but try as he might, he couldn't find a relative to Psyche to live with who wasn't a hamadryad. Tree nymphs live in trees, literally inside the trees. Psyche, being only part hamadryad, can't do that. Her hamadryad relatives told Dr. Critchlore that he was responsible for the life he had saved, so he took Psyche in as his ward. If he promised to raise and educate her but not train her as a minion, then they would not curse him with chestnut blight. "I have literature," she said. "Me too, let's go." I raced out of the field, Psyche following slowly. "Psyche, we're going to be late." She shrugged. So what? Will Miss Professor Zaida animate a scene from Odyssey of Yarnik? She does it every year. Yawn. I was really looking forward to it, but I didn't feel like I could abandon Psyche and go on without her. That would have been rude after she just saved me. So we walked slowly and were 15 minutes late for class. I sighed. Framed by Pismo, trapped by imps and late for class. 3 more bad things. There was no doubt about it. I was cursed. After fourth period ended, everyone raced to the cafeteria, located on the first floor of the castle. With my luck, I said to Psyche, they'll be serving vegetarian goulash or seafood tetrazzini. Even so, I felt some drool leak out of the sides of my mouth. We canines don't have much control in that department. We got in line behind the ogre men. I tried to look around them to get a peek at the meal, but they are just too large. I shook with hunger, silently willing the ogre men to move faster. We finally reached the front and I saw that Cook was serving my favourite lunch, hot dogs, fries, corn on the cob and pizza rolls. But just as I was thinking my luck meter had finally swiveled from bad to good, a loud explosion thundered in the distance. The building shook, pizza rolls flew off the trays, and my luck meter plummeted back past bad and landed firmly on horrendous. Chapter 11. To lead uninstructed minions into battle is to throw them away. Wisdom from Eastern philosophers. In seconds, the whole room flew into a panic. Imps and gremlins and brownies zipped in and out of people's legs, while the humanish minions tripped over them and screamed. Monkey men screeched, lizard boys clung to the wall, and werewolves had other shapeshifters transformed into their animal forms. A siren wailed, the pretty girl kind, not the alarm kind. Psyche grabbed a handful of pizza rolls and slid under a table. I joined her, wondering if the table could protect us from 10 tons of stone falling on top of it. My guess was no. The room was complete mayhem, except for the undead section of the cafeteria. Mummy skeletons and ghosts don't need to eat, but they come to the cafeteria during meals so they wouldn't feel left out. The explosion didn't faze them at all. On second glance, I noticed that the zombie table was empty. Where were they? The sound of an alarm bell pierced the air and I covered my ears. I have very sensitive hearing, especially at the upper registers. I felt claustrophobic, trapped in the cafeteria. Werewolves are made for action, not for hiding, but there was a big jam up at the cafeteria door as the minions trying to get outside crashed into others trying to get in. I stood up. Psyche grabbed my arm and pulled me back down. What are you doing? She asked. There might be more explosions. I have to find the zombies. I pointed to the empty table. Next to it, Rufus had corralled his mummy first years into a safe, calm little horde. Psyche let go of my arm and followed me as I ran behind the counter, through the kitchen and out the back entrance. A huge plume of smoke rose in the distance near the cemetery. Oh no, the last place I saw the zombies, my zombies, was over there. I pointed to the smoke. Let's go, Psyche said. That's what I liked best about Psyche. She never shied away from danger. She'd make a great minion, but her Hamadryad relatives wanted her to study horticultural science at one of the non-minion universities after she graduated. They'd told Dr. Critchlore to keep her out of any battle classes. We took off, passing humans and creatures running for the safety of the castle. When we got to the memorial courtyard, it was empty, but we heard Professor Zaida's whistle coming from the cemetery. We followed the sound until we found her at the edge of the smoke-filled graveyard. I couldn't see any zombies through the dust and smoke. It looked like something was on fire. Maybe a tool shed or a mausoleum. Higgins, Psyche, Professor Zaida said, get back to the castle, report to your safe zone. That was what minions were supposed to do when the alarm sounded, but we hadn't had an alarm drill yet. I was worried about the zombies, I said. They don't know where their safe zone is. Tootles, the groundskeeper, jogged over. He brushed a strand of white hair out of his face. Most of his hair was pulled back in a ponytail. Psyche, honey, you can't be out here, he said. Go home. Riker will be so worried. Even though she was Dr. Critchlore's ward, Psyche lived with Tootles and his wife Rygo in their expansive treehouse. It was an arrangement that worked for everyone. Psyche got to live in the trees, Tootles and Rygo got the child they never thought they'd have, and Dr. Critchlore was spared having to raise her himself. He's not really the nurturing type. As soon as I help runt with the zombies, she said. If I don't have any first years to help train, I said, Coach Foley won't need me as a mentee, and I won't be able to prove I'd be a good junior henchman. Tootles pointed to the cemetery. They're probably attracted to the freshly unearthed bodies, he said. The explosion happened right in the middle. But they're supposed to respond to my command when I use the whistle, Professor Zaida said. Try again, I said. Professor Zaida blew the whistle. I yelled in the whiniest voice I could, "Zombies! You have to return to the castle now!" Professor Zaida and Tootles looked at me like I was nuts. Then Professor Zaida's face lit up with understanding. Did Professor Vodum raise these zombies? I nodded, and then I smiled, because the zombies were emerging from the smoke. "Well done, Higgins," Professor Zaida said. "Thanks. Now about that detention. 4 o'clock in the dungeon," she answered. Rats. Psyche and I headed back to the castle. Students, professors and support staff stood in groups, waiting for the okay to go back inside. We sidestepped around Professor Vodum and the other necromancers, who were huddled around a tablet computer watching Channel 2's newsfeed. Professor Vodum was lecturing them on the possible cause of the explosion. "Of course, an uneducated person might suggest that this was underground gas leak that ignited," he said. "But the disbursement of debris would contraindicate that supposition. Furthermore," the other necromancers were ignoring him, and I couldn't blame them. Professor Vodum obviously enjoyed the sound of his own voice. Everyone else, not so much. "Disbursement of debris?" I asked Psyche. "Does he mean how far stuff was blown away?" She shrugged. "Sounds like he's dispersing his own debris." The necromancers looked worried, and I could guess why. With the cemetery destroyed, they'd just lost their raw materials, and most likely their jobs. Even worse, that meant no more undead minions for the school. Psyche grabbed my arm, stopping me in my tracks. She nodded toward the castle. Working his way through the crowd was Dr. Frankenhammer. I held my breath, but couldn't look away. He was the most frightening teacher in the school. People stepped out of his path as he strode in our direction. He looked like a pale phantom, but he was pure human. Frizzy white hair framed a narrow face. His eyebrows wisped straight up, as if something had just exploded in his face. Dark circles cradled eyes that barely opened past squint. Wearing a white lab coat, he looked like he'd been perfectly camouflaged in a glass of milk. And in his hand, as always, was a bloody scalpel. His gaze stopped at Professor Vodum, and half his face twisted into a smile, which did nothing to change his creepy, scary vibe. "Bad luck, Vodum," he called. "Now you'll have to get a real job. Ha!" He strode off without waiting for a reply. Professor Vodum gave Dr. Frankenhammer's back a serious death stare. "We're lucky, I guess," one of the new necromancers said. "If Vodum hadn't called that ridiculous meeting, we would have become our own raw materials." Professor Vodum looked ready to explode himself. Back in the cafeteria, things had calmed down and most kids had returned to the more important work, eating. The teachers were back in their private room. It had a glass partition separating it from the rest of us, so they could see us eat in peace. They'd pulled the shades down, which didn't help lessen the worry that filled the room. "Someone attacked us," I heard a kid say. "Probably another minion school." "Minion schools can't attack each other," a red-jacketed sixth year replied. "It's in the code. The Overlords want as many minion providers as possible. It keeps prices down. No, this was probably Evil Overlord work. Dark Vendix paying us back for training those defective ogre men." "Nobody's going to come here for school," a fourth-year werewolf said. "We're done for." My hunger vanished as worry took over my stomach.